Hello everyone, we're back with a bookish video. I should have a little pile of books here with me because I'm going to do winter TBR, but my TBR pile currently looks like this, and I'm very worried about it falling and suffocating me, so I didn't really want to dig through it and pick out all the books for this TBR video. So I'm just going to put up pictures and I have a little list, and that's just going to have to do for now. I say for now, for the video, it's not going to change halfway through. So I've spoken before about how I don't really do well with TBRs, but there are certain books that when it gets to a new season that I think, ooh, this would be good to read. You know, contemporaries for summer, mysteries and academia for sort of autumn, and then maybe some like crime winter fantasy for winter. So I definitely have a list of books that I want to read this sort of wintry season, and then a bunch of sort of recommendations that I haven't read that I would love to get to at this time of year. So first of all, Little Women. Little Women, because I was meant to read this 2 years ago in 2019 when the Greta Gerwig film was coming out, and I didn't, and then I missed my chance the next year because I left it at uni when I went home, and then this year it's already like the 22nd of December, so I'm sort of like again like pushing against the clock. I just feel like it would be such a shame to not read Little Women at Christmas time. I know it's not necessary, like I know I will enjoy it if I read it another time of year, but I just want to try and read it at Christmas time because I feel like it will give me the feels, you know? Another great book that starts in the lead up to Christmas time is Love, Frankie by Jackie Wilson, which is not like a Christmas book, it just begins around Christmas and then it sort of isn't about Christmas, it's about a young girl who starts to believe that she has feelings for her female best friend and has to understand what that means and how to tell her family and like navigate being not straight when you're young and realizing that when you're young. And it's wonderful, it's Jackie Wilson, so it's incredibly well written and just very engaging. I read it in one sitting even though it's 400 pages, just so good, and I really would recommend it because it's just quite cozy for this time of year. The next two books I want to read give me the same sort of vibe, maybe because they have similar covers, but also I think they're both sort of winter set fantasy, and that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik and The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And I actually don't know that much about either of those, so I'm gonna go and get a description from Goodreads because I don't research my videos before I sit down and film like an unprofessional, you know? I've been doing this for 4 years and I'm still sitting here like caught out having to Google things in the middle. Unbelievable. So this is the description for Spinning Silver. Miriam is the daughter and granddaughter of moneylenders, but her father's inability to collect his debts has left his family on the edge of poverty, until Miriam takes matters into her own hands. Yeah, girl. Hardening her heart, the young woman sets out to claim what is owed, and soon gains a reputation for being able to turn silver into gold. When an ill-advised boast draws the attention of the king of Starrick, grim fey creatures who seem more ice than flesh, Miriam's fate and that of the two kingdoms will be forever altered. Set an impossible challenge by the nameless king, so much information, Miriam unwittingly spins a web that draws in a peasant girl, Wanda, and the unhappy daughter of a local lord who plots to wed his... Do you know what? This is not even helpful. I know that blurbs are supposed to get you interested in the book, but that's just like too much information for me, and I feel like I'm already confused and I haven't started it. And I don't know if it's set at winter, it just gave me a winter vibe. Okay, so the last bit of the blurb says, channeling the vibrant heart of myth and fairy tale, Spinning Silver weaves a multi-layered magical tapestry that readers will want to return to again and again. So I feel like fairy tales is sort of a good vibe for winter, so I feel like that is probably why I thought it would be good for winter. But I really hope that my last two brain cells don't struggle with the book. I feel like I had a similar problem with Uprooted though. I was like, I'm too dumb for this, but we'll see. I'm now low-key scared to read the description for Bear and the Nightingale. Alright, at the edge of the Russian wilderness, okay, winter, cool. At the edge of the Russian wilderness, winter lasts most of the year and the snowdrifts grow taller than the houses. But Vasilisa doesn't mind. She spends the winter nights huddled around the embers of a fire with her beloved siblings, listening to her nurse's fairy tales. Again, fairy tales. Great. Above all, she loves the chilling story of Frost, the blue-eyed winter demon who appears in the frigid night to claim unwary souls. Wise Russians fear him, her nurse says, and honor the spirits of house and yard and forest that protect their homes from evil. After Vasilisa's mother dies, her father goes to Moscow and brings home a new wife. Fiercely devout, city-bred, Vasilisa's new stepmother forbids her family from honoring the household spirits. there's like another paragraph to this, but I feel like that's all we need to know. I mean, come on, don't give the game away. So this is completely up my street and I definitely want to get to it, if not in December, like early January. I just love winter, snow, cozying around a fire, you know, that fairy tale vibe of like an evil stepmother, demons. I'm ready for it. I'm so excited. The next book I would love to get to in winter is Mrs. Death, oh my god, if I can even say it, is Mrs. Death by Selena Godden. And I don't think this has a particularly wintry setting or theme. I just know it's about a personification of death, and I feel like winter, it's a time of, you know, death and decay, and then spring is the time of rebirth. So I feel like this would be quite an interesting novel to read around this time of year. You know, the year is ending, it's like quite reflective, you know, quite introspective. And all I know about this is that it's about a woman who is death, and she is sort of had enough of being death and choosing who dies and who when, and so she sort of unburdens her soul to this young writer, and that's all I know, and that's all I want to know, and I would be really excited to get to it around this time of year. The next couple of books on my TBR are cozy crime novels. So the first one is The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which I've heard amazing things about. Everyone on BookTube seems to read this in one sitting, and I think that's because it's a sort of multi-layered, multi-structural novel, so I think it has like texts and emails, and like it's sort of, what's the word, like multi-format, I don't know, I guess it just isn't all prose, that's what I'm trying to say. So it's quite speedy, you get through it quite quickly, and it's meant to be like you piece together the mystery from these little fragments yourself, and I've just heard that it's very engaging, very compelling, and for that reason I don't really want to know much about the plot. I want to go into it completely blind and try and like piece everything together myself. I don't want to be like spoiled or like feel like I know too much of the story before going in, so I'm kind of leaving it there. And the other sort of cozy crime that I really want to read is The Reader's Room by Antoine Lorraine, and this is a cozy crime set at a publishing house in France. So I believe at this publishing house they get sent a novel that is a crime novel, and everyone loves it. It's sort of, you know, the buzz of The Office, and then real life murders start to happen that mirror the events of the book, and like, I guess chaos ensues, and so I'm very excited to read that. I would also love to read The Betrayals at this time of year by Bridget Collins. It's not necessarily anything to do with like winter, but it is dark academia, and I was meant to read it earlier in like September, October, so like for term time. But I just love dark academia, and I think it would be quite vibey at this time of year, because it's dark, you know, it's dark outside, you want to curl up with like a sort of dark dramatic book. You know, don't you just feel dramatic when it's winter? Because, you know, you've got this, well, I've got my big poncho, my big cape, and you can just be like, you know, as you stare out into the sort of harshness of the world. I don't know. I'm talking about big red cloaks, big curly hair, candles, and like staring out a sort of frosty cracked window into a really harsh landscape. That's the vibe I'm after this winter, and all winters. Although I have to be inside looking out because I don't last long in the cold. Another book on my TBR for this winter is The Way Past Winter, which, as you could probably gather from the title, is a winter sort of set folktale. And I got it from Caris, I believe, when she was doing it on the haul, so I don't know that much about it. It's not one that I sought out and bought myself, but I'm excited. And it has a cute little cover, and I think it's about two siblings who go on this sort of journey in the winter time, and I just love a good fairy tale folktale, and I think if you do too, a really good one that I love reading around this time of year, or rereading around this time of year, is Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. And obviously Leigh Bardugo gets a lot of hype for the Shadow and Bone trilogy and for the Six of Crows duology. She gets well-deserved hype for those books, and Ninth House as well, which is her dark academia one. But I don't really hear people talking about Language of Thorns, and it's like my favourite book of hers that she's ever written. And it's basically a series of sort of folk tales set in the Grishaverse. They're meant to be like the stories that the characters in the Grishaverse would have grown up reading, so a lot of like myths and legends about the stag and about other things, but there's a story in there that is basically a dark nutcracker retelling, and it is just my favourite thing. I love it. It's set at Christmas as well, and the illustrations in the book are beautiful. It's just stunning and so evocative. If you've read Leigh Bardugo, you know that she's an incredible writer, and it's just so gorgeous, and it just made my heart so full and happy, and it's wonderful for this time of year. So if you're looking for something like that, that's sort of folktale inspired, cozy, and just wonderfully written and just beautifully intricate, I would really recommend Language of Thorns. And also The Bloody Chamber, that's the OG, is a, you know, gothic, beautiful, evocative fairy tales, retellings, wonderful things. if you've been on the channel for any length of time, you will know how hard I go for the Bloody Chamber. It is my favourite book of all time, and I try and mention it in at least every second video, because I just think your life will be better once you've read it. That's what I believe. Now we come to the part of my list where it's books that I don't own, but I would like to own, and I would like to read around this time of year. So the first one on that part of the list is Eileen by Tessa Moshfegh, and I read Death in Her Hands by Tessa Moshfegh and I loved it. I think that would also be a good one for this time of year. Again, it's like an eerie sort of mystery, but I believe that Eileen is specifically set in winter at Christmas time, and it's about this woman who is alone at Christmas, and she develops this obsession with another woman, and she sort of slowly over the course of the novel starts to lose touch with reality. I believe that's what it's about. I try not to read too much into the books before I get them, as you can probably tell, as I had to look up everything for this video. But it just sounds so evocative and beautiful, and I love Death in Her Hands and the way that you just couldn't trust the narrator at all, and it was quite distant and cold, but also so enveloping at the same time. And just the sort of vague plot that I do know of Eileen, it sounds very reminiscent of Hangs a Man by Shirley Jackson, which I read in October and absolutely fell in love with, because Hangs a Man is about a girl who goes from home to university and slowly loses touch with her reality. She just goes a bit mad with the isolation and the sort of feeling in limbo and not knowing what to do with her life. But Eileen is something that I would love to get my hands on and read around this time of year. Also Midnight in Everwood, which I just talked about the Nutcracker, where this is like a gothic middle grade Nutcracker retelling, and those are all of the buzzwords to get me interested in a book. I just want it. I want it. Look at that cover as well. It is stunning. It is so beautiful. Another one that I put on this list purely because of the cover was The Evil Wizard Smallbone. I have no clue what this is even about. I think it's middle grade. It looks like it's fantasy set in winter. Should we look it up? Should we go have a look? In a hilarious tale reminiscent of T.H. White. Who is that? A lost boy finds himself an unlikely apprentice to the very old, vaguely evil, mostly just grumpy wizard Smallbone. When 12-year-old Nick runs away from his uncles in the middle of a blizzard, he stumbles into a very opinionated bookstore. Oh, holy shit. He also meets its guardian, a self-proclaimed evil wizard Smallbone, who calls Nick his apprentice and won't let him leave, but won't teach him magic either. It's a good thing the bookstore takes Nick's magical education in hand, because Smallbone's nemesis, the evil wizard Fiddaloo, and his pack of shape-shifting bikers are howling at the border. Smallbone might call himself evil, but compared to Fiddaloo, he's practically a puppy, and he can't handle Fiddaloo alone. Wildly funny and cozily heartfelt, Delia Sherman's latest is an eccentric fantasy adventure featuring dueling wizards, enchanted animals, and one stray boy with a surprising knack for magic. Well, that just sounds incredible. I mean, incredible enough to break my book buying ban? Maybe. And a book that I always see pop up on Goodreads, and I always think I should get that and read it at winter, is A Winter's Promise, for obvious reasons. And I believe this is fantasy. I think there's like 3 or 4 books in the series. No idea what it's about, so again, I've looked it up on Goodreads. I always feel like in these videos I should be imparting knowledge of like books that I've read that, you know, I recommend and share, but I feel like half of this is just me stabbing around in the dark being like, I don't know what this is about, come and find out with me, which you could just do your own research, you don't need me. But anyway. Long ago, following a cataclysm called the Rupture, the world was shattered into many floating celestial islands. Known now as arcs, each has developed in distinct ways, each seems to possess its own unique relationship to time, such that nowadays vastly different worlds exist, together but apart. And over all of the arcs, the spirit of an omnipotent ancestor abides. Ophelia lives on Anima, an arc where objects have souls. Beneath her worn scarf and thick glasses, the young girl hides the ability to read and communicate with the souls of objects, and the power to travel through mirrors. Sick. Her peaceful existence on the arc of Anima is disrupted when she is promised in marriage to Thorn. Hello. From the powerful dragon clan. Hello! Ophelia must leave her family and follow her fiancé to the floating capital on the distant arc of the pole. Why has she been chosen? Why must she hide her true identity? Though she doesn't know it yet, she has become a pawn in a deadly plot. Oh my god! This was the worst video that I could have done in the weeks after putting myself on the book buying ban. Because now I want all of these books, and I kind of want them now, because it's like, it's time sensitive. And realistically, I'm not going to read this many books in December, January, February. but I don't like not having them. I want to have the option, you know? And lastly, Dash and Lily. I have been mildly obsessed with the Netflix series Dash and Lily, which I know I'm a bit late. It came out a couple of years ago and I wanted to watch it at the time, but it just fell off my radar. But this year I watched it in a desperate bid to feel festive, and oh my god, it worked! It's 8 episodes and each episode is like 20 minutes long, so I breezed through it in like a single evening. It's a Christmas rom-com that's set in New York that starts in a bookshop. When I come across things like this, I really just feel like somebody has crawled into my brain at some point and just gone, you need this. I'm gonna make something just for you, you know? And that's what Dash and Lily is. So in the beginning we follow Dash, who finds a notebook in his favourite bookstore as he's browsing. It's a Strand bookstore in New York. And he opens it and it's like a little like do you dare, and there are a bunch of dares listed out in the book, and he does them and like writes down his experiences in the book, leaves it in the bookstore, and then Lily comes and finds the book and they start communicating through this book. It's a bit pretentious, I'm not gonna lie, like they're quite pretentious, but I mean Dash is quite pretentious, I think Lily is less so, but it's just so sweet, and the aesthetics of the show is just gorgeous. The Jonas Brothers show up in the last episode, which is just iconic in every way. I just loved it so much. And then I found out it was meant to have a season 2, and then it got cancelled. So it was like a brief moment of unadulterated happiness that was then immediately quashed. But there are 3 books, and I assume books 2 and 3 carry on where season 1 of the show ended. So now, naturally, I'm very curious to read books 2 and 3. I have no idea if they're also set at Christmas time or if they're just a continuation of the first book and therefore are set in like January, February, or whatever. I hope they're set at Christmas. I could just look it up, couldn't I? But yeah, let's look it up. Well, the second book is called 12 Days of Dash and Lily, so that sounds promising. That sounds like it's Christmas time again. Yeah, it's like a year later and it's Christmas again. Okay, I want to read this, yes. So those are all the books that are on my physical TBR and some that are not on my physical TBR that I would love to read at this time of year when it's dark outside and you want to get cozy and look out at the harsh landscape in your big red cloak, apparently. Do let me know what you want to be reading at this time of year, any books that are on your immediate TBR, and also any thoughts that you have on any of the ones that I've mentioned today. And I would love to see you again soon for another video soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.